It wasn't the yelling that stunned me, it was the fact that Olivia did it with my apron still in her hand. "Get out of my kitchen," she shouted, spatula raised like a gavel. Every pair of eyes turned toward me, forks paused midair, napkins clutched like shields, and I froze between the counter and the stove. A guest in the house I built. If you've ever stood still while someone rewrote your story, comment, "Not anymore, I'll see you." Michael stood behind her, jaw tight, hands shoved into his pockets like he could bury his spine in there too. "I'm sorry, Mom," he mumbled, but his feet never moved. Neither did hers. The lasagna was still bubbling in the oven. My oven, the one Robert installed with a bow on top for our 25th anniversary. I heard a cough. Someone dropped a fork. Someone else muttered, "Maybe we should go." The air thinned, like the walls themselves were leaning in, trying to suffocate me quietly. I didn't argue, didn't beg, just walked to the side counter, where my purse sat, the small blue one with a cracked leather handle and peppermint candies melted into the lining. I looped it over my wrist like armor, and I walked past her. Not around her, not behind, straight past. And as I did, I caught my reflection in the microwave door. Back straight, shoulders level, not defeated. Just done. That's the part no one tells you about humiliation. How quiet it is, how still. I passed the photo wall, the one she tried to rearrange last week. Robert's face still hung slightly crooked, like even the nails refused her edits. Upstairs, my study was darker than usual. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't need it. The folder sat where I'd left it 2 springs ago, marked simply, "House Deed." I opened it slowly, the way you open old wounds. There it was. Clause 9. My name, etched in legal permanence. Edith Graham retained sole occupancy rights, unless by written consent. But that's not what caught me. Tucked between the pages, pressed like a secret he'd meant me to find only when I needed it, was a small envelope, cream-colored, no stamp, just my name, in Robert's unmistakable script. "E," it said, "for when it happens." I stared at it, not breathing, not blinking. Just still. The clock ticked behind me like a countdown. There was only one number worth dialing, and my fingers found it before my mind caught up. The line rang twice. "Ms. Graham." "Kendricks," assistant answered. I cleared my throat. The words came slow but sharp. "Morning appointment." A pause. "Of course," I exhaled. "First light, please." The envelope didn't tremble. I did. Even my breath seemed to pause, as if it, too, wanted permission before unfolding what Robert left behind. I broke the seal slowly, not like tearing paper, but like disturbing soil around a buried seed. Inside, one page, ink faded, corners curled, but his handwriting was unmistakable. "E, if she ever tries to replace you, look in the desk. Second drawer, under the cancelled checks. You'll find what." I couldn't say out loud. I didn't run, I walked. Each step, measured like a heartbeat, counted at a bedside. Back to the desk we picked together on our 3rd anniversary. Oak deep drawers, quiet hinges. I opened the second one. Checks, receipts, rubber bands that lost their stretch. And then a folder, thin labeled in Robert's careful, practical print. "Codicil, do not lose." The paper inside smelled faintly of lemon polish and thyme. I didn't read it, not yet, just pressed it to my chest. That's when I heard it. Olivia's laugh from downstairs, shrill, sharp, too loud for sincerity, like someone winning a game they don't know is rigged. I held the folder tighter. My jaw locked. My back straightened. She'd brought war into my kitchen. But this was Alma. I called Kendrick's office again. The same assistant answered, brisk and alert. "I need a review of the deed and my will." A pause, a breath. "Mrs. Graham," she said gently, "are you sure you want to open that door?" Looked at Robert's folder again, and whispered, "He wanted me safe. I intend to be." I placed the codicil inside the safe, beside the deed, like twin sentinels keeping guard. The metal clunked shut with a sound that echoed through my bones, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Closure, protection, choice. I reached for my phone, typed slowly, deliberately. I found it. "Let's talk." And then I sat there, still, not crying, not thinking, just still, while downstairs, her laughter kept rising, unaware that something ancient and buried had just been unearthed, and soon, it would bloom. Funny how a woman can carry a folder like it's a sword, and still feel every step like she's barefoot, on glass. I walked into Kendrick and read, not like a client, but like a ghost, demanding recognition. The receptionist blinked up at me, startled, maybe by the hour, maybe by my posture, maybe by the fact I didn't smile. I didn't need to. My breath was steady, rising with purpose, like steam from a kettle about to scream. Edith Kendrick said, opening the door to his office. His eye swept the folder in my arms before they reached my face. You sounded urgent. I didn't sit. I slid the folder across his polished desk. Oak, clean, not a single fingerprint. Robert would have liked that. The deed, I said, and something else. He opened it slowly, read Clause 9 first, the one we'd drawn up years ago, back when I still wore heels to church and believed daughter-in-law meant something softer. Then the codicil, his brow lifted, slight, sharp, guardian of the house, he murmured, quoting, "He named you more than owner." I nodded once, like a queen granting permission to the truth. He flipped a few pages. The life use clause is airtight. You can restrict who stays in the home and where. Permanently. My voice surprised me. Can I draft a notice today? Kendrick sat back, took off his glasses like they were suddenly too heavy. This will ignite the fuse, Edith. He wasn't warning me. He was confirming something, that I already smelled the smoke. Outside his office window, a branch tapped softly against the glass. It reminded me of when Michael was small, how he'd throw pebbles at my sewing room until I opened it to let him in. Now he let her throw matches, and I was the one shutting windows. Kendrick leaned forward. Do you want to ignite it? I looked down at my purse. The same cracked leather, the same melted candy, but inside now, proof, intention, boundaries. I'm not striking the match, I said quietly. I'm just holding it where she can see. He reached for his pen. Begin. For a moment, the room stilled. No clock ticked. No phones rang. Even the branch seemed to stop, like time itself was bracing. And in that pause, that deep, sacred silence, I felt something settle. Not revenge. Not anger. Just. Alignment. Light. Finally standing in the exact place your shadow matches your feet. The notice was simple. 3 paragraphs. 1 kitchen. 0 apologies. Kendrick handed it to me. I held it, not like a threat, but like an offering to myself, like light cupped between fingers. He folded the original papers back into the folder. Want me to deliver it? I shook my head. No, this is mine to walk. Outside, the street was warm with late morning sun. I stepped into it, not squinting, just blinking into clarity. The folder pressed under my arm, my breath even, my heels clicking, like punctuation. I wasn't leaving the lawyer's office. I was entering the battlefield, and I wasn't bringing a flag. I was bringing fire. Sometimes the smallest clause is the sharpest blade, and sometimes the hand holding it is old, but steady. Kendrick laid the document on his desk with the care of someone dressing a wound. The paper was crisp, but the weight it carried was older than ink. It was history sharpened into law. Clause 9 is now active, he said, sliding the pen across the desk. The pen trembled for half a second between my fingers, not from fear, but from memory. This was the same kind of pen Robert always bought. Smooth barrel, blue ink, predictable. Unlike everything that had followed him, I signed, deliberately, full name, middle initial, a line drawn not just in ink, but in boundary. You understand, Kendrick said quietly. If she contests this, it's not going to be petty. It goes to court. I capped the pen. That's where it belongs now. The notice read like poetry to me. 3 rooms, kitchen, living area, garden patio. Sole occupancy, revocable, only by the guardian, me. I folded the document and slipped it into my purse. The cracked leather sighed as it accepted it, as if even it understood the gravity. Then Kendrick rose to walk me out, and that's when we heard it. Heels, sharp, deliberate, dash. The reception area changed temperature before she even entered it. Olivia hair pulled tight, blazer too sharp for morning light, jaw clenched like glass, ready to shatter. She was already speaking before she saw me. Where is she? And then she did. Our eyes locked. Mine calm. Hers, volcanic. My heart didn't race. It steadied the way a seasoned sailor braces for the first visible wave. You think this means something, she hissed. You think this little clause scares me. I didn't answer, not to her. The receptionist's face had drained of color. Kendrick didn't move. She took a step closer. I'll see you in court. I didn't blink, just turned, walked to the elevator, and pressed L. Lobby.land.launch.dash behind me. Her breath was heavy, almost theatrical, like a storm building behind a closed curtain. But I didn't turn around, because storms don't scare houses that are built on steel. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in alone, softer, simpering, like betrayal's chorus Gertha, folder pressed against my ribs like armor. As they closed behind me, her voice finally dropped silent, and in that hush, that blessed hush, I exhaled a single word, not loud, not dramatic, but forged in the kind of steel only women like me carry. Bring it. Politeness is a hidden weapon. You don't feel the blade until you're already bleeding. That night, I set the table like I used to, linen napkins, crystal glasses, the silver that only came out when Robert's boss visited. The roast was carved perfectly. The wine decanted an hour early, and the knife in my smile sharpened in silence. Olivia arrived late. Of course she did. Hair immaculate, eyes too wide. Her friend Amanda trailing behind like a shadow with lipstick. I hope I'm not interrupting, Olivia said, placing her purse at the table with surgical precision. I pulled out her chair myself. Oh, not at all, I said. We haven't started carving the truth yet. Michael poured the wine. His hands shook, just enough to leave a drop on the rim of Olivia's glass. She smiled at him like a teacher. Correcting a child, he smiled back like he'd forgotten what a spine was. Amanda broke the silence first. Wow, the table looks ... intense. Michael cleared his throat and raised his glass. To new beginnings. I tapped mine once, gently, didn't speak, just looked at him. Let him feel what omission sounds like. Olivia reached for her fork, stopped, tilted her head. Oh, she said, I saw the new paperwork on the counter this morning. She swirled her wine lazily, very official. I lifted a spoonful of soup, blew on it once, and sipped like her words didn't burn. You always were thorough, Edith, she added with a laugh that smelled like lemon and threat. I folded my napkin on my lap, smooth and centered. The court date is set. Her face didn't flinch, but her posture did, a millimeter's worth, like a queen adjusting a crown she suddenly realized was crooked. Amanda blinked. Court. Michael shifted in his seat, eyes darting between us like a child, caught between thunderstorms. I kept my gaze fixed on Olivia. You'll receive the paperwork by morning. Forks scraped plates like stage cues. Amanda whispered to Olivia, Are you seriously going to court with his mom? Olivia didn't answer, but her grip on the wine glass tightened until her knuckles went pale. Michael tried again. Maybe we can all talk before it ... escalates. I smiled. The kind of smile women wear when they've already packed the parachute and watched the bridge burn behind them. Michael, talking is what got us here. Dessert was served. I didn't eat it, just sat, centered, composed, then quietly reached for my napkin, the one I'd embroidered myself years ago, cream with golden thread. Except now, it had 2 words inked onto the fabric in my own hand. Clause 9. I laid it down beside Olivia's plate, deliberate, visible, final. She stared at it like it had spoken. Amanda gasped, too loud for the room. Michael pushed back from the table. The silence, it wasn't empty, it was thick with unspoken history and future consequences. I stood, gathered my purse, its cracked leather worn smooth in the same spot where I always gripped it during storms. Tonight, it was dry. Tonight, it was armor. I didn't wait for thanks, or rage, or tears, just walked toward the hallway, heels clicking like a countdown. Behind me, Olivia picked up the napkin, her voice caught, not high, not loud, just raw. You've made your move. I didn't turn around, just paused by the archway, and for the first time that night, the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe, steady. Complete, like steel cooling after the forge. I didn't sleep, not because I couldn't, because I didn't want to miss the sound of silence making decisions. There's something sacred about 2 a.m. when the house forgets it's haunted and just breathes. The lamp on Robert's desk glowed low and amber, like the last ember of a long-burned fire. The court documents sat beneath my hands, smooth and heavy. On top, his handwriting, still sharp, after all these years. Protect what we built. New compromise. Funny how a man can build you a fortress and still leave you to defend it alone. I ran my finger down the crease of the envelope. No smudges, no hesitation. Just law and love, layered like soil. I reached for the matchbox in the drawer, lit 1 candle, The flame trembled, caught and held. Its glow danced on the edges of the paperwork, as if reading with me, flickering approval or warning. Behind me, the house was quiet. No footsteps, no sighs. Just the soft tick of the grandfather clock and the hiss of wax dripping. Then, by accident or fate, my elbow nudged the voicemail button on the landline. I hadn't unplugged yet. It played a message I didn't remember saving. Michael's voice. Hey Mom, it's me. Just ... Thanks for everything. Really, I mean it. It was 10 years ago. I could tell from the softness in his voice before Olivia, before the forgetting, before my name became a complication. The message ended, then played again, and I didn't stop it. The candle flickered with each breath I took, not shaky, but slow. Like my lungs remembered how to hold grief without drowning in it. I closed my eyes, listened again and again, until the sound wasn't memory, it was movement. Eventually, I opened the safe, removed the deed and Robert's note, pressed my palm to the paper, like a promise. The courtroom bell echoed in my memory, not a sound I heard, but one I felt, like the clang of doors opening where they were once slammed. I picked up the envelope again, stamped at the top, return service requested. The ink bled slightly into the fibers. Permanent. Precise. Like all good boundaries. I'm doing this for us, I whispered into the room. To Rava, to myself, to the ghosts still lingering near the stairs. And then I sealed it, pushed the envelope to the edge of the desk like a ship, ready to leave harbor, not drifting. Directed. The candle burned low, its shadow stretched across the wood like a signature, and in the hush, that midnight hush where pain turns to clarity, I felt something click. Not peace, not vengeance, something older, the weight of choosing yourself and doing it on paper. The door was closed. That should have meant nothing, but in this house, it was code. When Robert was alive, we closed the den door to wrap Christmas presents or cry about the cancer before it had a name. Now, it meant strategy, secrets, smoke curling under the crack before the fire shows itself. I walked by with the tea tray, didn't slow down, didn't speed up either, just listened. The hushed click of ice in glasses, a laptop fan humming, Olivia's voice, too smooth, too certain. Bankruptcy's faster than eviction. My hand tightened on the cup handle, but I didn't drop it, because rage is loud, and power is quiet. I kept walking past the staircase, past the frame Robert hung crooked, and I never fixed. But the words followed me like perfume on clothes you never wore. Legal fees press, mental competency, angle. Elderly matriarch, gone rogue. Amanda again. L. Michael cleared his throat. Old sound of hesitation I used to hear when he wanted to quit piano. She raised me, live. You really think this is the way? A beat of silence. Then, Olivia, steel wrapped in silk, she'll fight, we strike first. I stopped by the window, watched a moth bump against the glass, trying to reach the light. She's holding the deed, the attorney said, but if we shift public opinion, delay with COUNTERSUITS. She drown in paperwork before she ever sees a judge. Paperwork, that's what they called it now, not history, not love, not legacy, just a blade, disguised in formatting. I'll draft a suggestion, Olivia said, calm, as a surgeon, that she'll consider relocating to the guest house. Voluntarily. She even laughed. She won't see it coming. I moved again. Quietly, not like a woman sneaking, like a woman retrieving the truth. The safe was behind the china hutch. Robert's idea. No one checks under teacups. I opened it with the same combination I used to punch into our anniversary travel. Fund. 32-17-04. The date. We said no matter what. Inside the codicil, labeled in Robert's hand, still smelling faintly of lemon oil and dust. I held it like something holy, because it was. The house was silent. Now. Not in absence. In anticipation. The kind of silence that hangs in courtrooms just before the verdict. I sat at the desk. Laid the folder out in front of me. Ran my fingers over his signature, sharp, slanted, like a man writing his truth faster than he could say it. My breath slowed. The moth outside had gone, only its shadow flickered now, and I sat there, not trembling, not frozen, just still enough to let the truth settle in the space between fear and resolve. I never did, I whispered. And the safe clicked closed behind me. Some gifts arrive late, others were waiting the whole time. You just had to be cornered to unwrap them. I called Kendrick at sunrise, told him to come before the house fully woke up, before polite voices masked sharpened ones. He was at the door 20 minutes later, coffee in one hand, curiosity in the other. The codicil sat between us on the table, lit by a shaft of honest, morning light. I'd laid out the page like a battle plan, a clause highlighted in Robert's ink. Kendrick read in silence, his jaw tightening with every line. "Edith," he finally said, "this isn't just a clause." I nodded. "It's a boundary with teeth." Olivia burst in without knocking. Michael, trailing behind her, as if dragged by the collar of obligation. Her lipstick was a shade too bold for a home. This early she saw the codicil before she saw me, and for once, just once, she didn't smile. I picked it up gently, held it like a relic. "Robert's last instruction," I said, my voice calm. "If I'm ousted, the entire estate freezes." Then I read it out loud, every word, even the part that made her lips go pale. "And in the event of contest or coercion, the executor may redistribute assets as they see fit." Amanda wasn't there this time. Maybe even snakes know when to stay hidden. Olivia stepped forward, eyes locked on the page. "You're bluffing." Kendrick didn't move. "It's notarized, witnessed, registered." He folded his arms, slow and heavy. Tampering would be felony-level destruction of evidence. She lunged anyway, like instinct overtook calculation. Her hand grabbed a corner, ripped it, but only a sliver came loose. Fluttering like a torn wing, Kendrick stepped between us. "Olivier, that's enough." She froze, realized what she'd done, and just like that her rage folded into retreat. She stormed out, half muttering legal nonsense, as if volume could drown logic. Michael paused by the door, didn't speak, didn't apologize, didn't even look back. I sat down again, calmly, picked up the fragment. She tore it out. It was the corner, with Robert's initials. I taped it back with clear adhesive, the kind you use for old photo albums and broken things you still believe in. Then, without a word, I opened my purse, removed the inner lining I'd stitched myself years ago, and slid in a second copy, taped it flat against the leather. Invisible, but impenetrable. Let her smear me online. Let her draft her little suggestions. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman they were trying to erase had already rewritten the script. I tucked the purse under my arm, like armor. Let its weight settle against my hip, then looked back at the taped codicil on the table. Still whole, still sharp. Still mine. "Time to rewrite the rules," I whispered, and with that, I walked out, not like a woman fighting for scraps, but like one finally holding the pen. They called me a tyrant. Not to my face. Of course, that would have taken spine. They did it in ink, in pixels, behind screens and pens, and smiling reporters with soft voices and sharp questions. I found the paper on the porch, folded neatly, like betrayal in Sunday clothes. Heir dispute erupts. Tyrant matriarch refuses. Transition of family estate. There was even a photo. Me, standing in the garden, in a housecoat, looking like a villain they'd invented from lace and grief. The tea kettle screamed before I did. I turned it off without pouring. Just stood there, holding the paper, like it might burn if I gripped it wrong. The phone rang. Michael, of course it was. His voice trembled, panic laced with something like shame. "Mom. I didn't know she'd go to the press. I swear. I just thought, look, can we talk?" I didn't answer, just pressed the red record button on the side of the landline. A small, satisfying click. He kept talking, dugging, just enough rope. The call ended. I sat back down, opened my laptop, logged in to an account I hadn't touched since Robert passed. One we made for garden tutorials, and posted something new. The video was 30 seconds long. No words. Just me. Standing in front of the house, wearing the same housecoat from the photo, holding the deed in one hand, and a photo of Robert in the other. At the end, I looked into the camera and said, "Home isn't where we're born. It's where we decide to be." Then I smiled, turned, and walked back inside. Within hours, it spread, not viral, but steady, like ivy on stone. Neighbors commented, double quotes, "Edith taught me to prune roses when I lost my mom. She helped fix our fence when Michael was out of town. That woman hosted every block party for 10 years, and the ones who didn't know me, they just shared it with a heart emoji by noon." I heard from Rosa. She arrived with lilies, my favorite. Not a word about the article, just a hug that smelled like coffee and cinnamon. She stayed an hour. We didn't gossip, didn't plan. Just sat. Quiet. Present, like women do when the world calls them names they didn't earn. When she left, I stood by the front door, looked out over the porch. The hydrangeas were blooming again, late this year, like they'd waited for the right moment. I propped my phone on the WINDOWSILL. Pressed record again. Let the camera catch my face, unfiltered, unafraid. Smile. Not to perform. To anchor. To remind. The footage didn't need sound. Sometimes presence speaks louder than proof. 5 minutes later, a text lit up the screen from Olivia. No punctuation, just venom. This isn't over. I stared at the message, didn't reply, just saved the screenshot and turned the phone off. Let the silence return. Let it thicken, because the difference between noise and truth, one wants to be heard, the other already knows it's right. I closed the door gently, like a period, and walked back into the kitchen, past the paper, past the kettle, to the purse with the codicil copy stitched inside, still waiting, still solid, still mine. Sometimes love is loud. And sometimes it's paperwork in a locked drawer. That morning, I unlocked the second drawer of Robert's old desk, the one even Olivia never checked. Inside, a green leather folder, slim, serious, titled in Robert's handwriting, Personal Discretionary Trust. I unfolded it like a confession. Rosa's name. My private account. No loopholes, no contingencies. Just kindness. Documented. Robert had signed off on it before he got sick, back when Rosa was helping me manage the house after his second fall. I remembered her hands, always warm, her voice, never hurried, loyalty, paid forward in ink. I texted her one sentence: "Come when you can, I have something of yours." 15 minutes later, she was on the porch, no makeup, no hesitation, just her breathless, holding a pastry box-like piece. I handed her the folder, watched her read in silence, watched her mouth part. When she reached the clause that gave her full control of the fund, should anything happen to me, she looked up, eyes glassed, lips trembling. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. I smiled. Neither did I, but I got it anyway. Then came the sound of heels, sharp, entitled, "Too fast for the hallway." Olivia didn't knock. She stormed in like wind, through a broken window. "What's this about? A second trust?" She spotted the folder in Rosa's hands, snatched toward it like a hawk. I moved first, stepped between them, clicked the front door shut behind her with a calm I didn't know I owned. "You don't get to demand access to what you never built," I said, folding the folder shut again. She scoffed. "That money came from Dad. It's mine too." I tilted my head. "Then call your lawyer." "Mine's already on the way." Right on cue, Kendrick's car in the driveway. He stepped out holding a binder thick with proof. "Authenticated, witnessed, archived," he said as he entered, nodding to Rosa with quiet respect. Olivia's face changed. Not panic, not remorse. Just recalibration, like a predator scenting new wind. She didn't speak, didn't argue, just turned on her heel and walked out. Kendrick set the binder on the table. Rosa still hadn't moved. I reached for the kettle, poured tea into the 3 mismatched mugs I always kept for real conversations. We sat. Steam rising between us. No one said much. Didn't need to. Rosa held the folder in her lap like something sacred. Kendrick checked a few dates, and I just let myself feel the weight of a shift. Not legal, not loud. Just right outside. The wind had picked up. The hydrangeas swayed without bending, strong-rooted, just like women who are underestimated. I looked at Kendrick. Then Rosa lifted. "My cup, my house," I said. Held the pause, then added, "My choices." And for the first time in weeks I drank my tea warm. It's a strange thing preparing to defend what you already lived. Stranger still to prepare for war with people who once wore your last name like honor. I spent that night in the study, not pacing. Organizing. Because chaos doesn't scare me anymore, but being misunderstood. That still does. The green leather folder sat beside the CODICIL. Clause 9 glared at me like a dare. Should any heir seek to subvert the testator's intent. I underlined it again, as if ink could shout louder the second time. The room smelled of old paper, black tea, and lemon oil. I clicked on the video recorder, cleared my throat, and faced the lens like it was a mirror. "My name is Edith Hale," I began. No tears, no tremble. "Robert was my husband for 41 years. This isn't about bitterness or fear. It's about honoring a man who knew where the real inheritance lived between choices, not bloodlines. I paused, let the silence stretch wide enough to fit everything they never understood. Then, this trust, this clause, this house, they were never about power, just protection. I ended the recording. Exhaled. Saved it twice. I recorded 2 more, one for the clerk, one for the family. Each one measured, each one different, all of them mine. Then I sealed them in manila envelopes, heavy with truth, labeled in my handwriting, the kind I used to address Christmas cards before Olivia took over the guest list. 1 judge, 1 clerk, 1 family. I placed them under the lamp. Its amber light pooled like confession on the desks. Mahogany grain. The courthouse clock tower chimed midnight. 12 slow, aching notes that echoed across town. I used to love that sound. Now it just counted down, the breath between everything before and everything after. I walked to the window. Stood still, still like the house was listening, still like grief before it hardens. Outside, the sky wasn't black. Not yet. It was that bruised color between courage and regret. I remembered a night 10 years ago, Robert, on the porch, telling me he didn't want his money turning into a battlefield. I said, then build fences before flowers. He laughed, but then he did. I touched the edge of the envelope marked family, ran my thumb across the flap. If they opened it, they'd hear not a defense, but a decision, not an explanation, just evidence. Because love, when it's strong enough, doesn't ask to be believed, it just stands. I turned off the lamp, left only the hallway light flickering from an old bulb I never replaced. That light had seen every holiday, every tantrum, every toast. Now it saw a woman ready. I stepped back from the window, purse on the chair, envelopes on the desk. No more scrambling, no more justifying. Just silence, and steam still rising from my untouched tea. Let Olivia bring her fury. Let Michael squint at the terms. Let Amanda rehearse whatever performance she thinks earns pity. I won't raise my voice. I already raised the bar. Tomorrow will come with its robes and rules. But tonight belonged to me, my house. My light. My last word, already recorded. Let dawn bring judgment. I'll be waiting. Some doors don't knock, they pound. I opened it in my robe, steam still rising from the tea I hadn't touched. To process, servers. Too polite for the hour, too polished to be casual. One held the envelope like it was fragile. The other said, Edith Hale. I nodded. They handed it over like it weighed nothing. But it didn't feel that way in my hands. It was cold, even through the paper. The seal was crisp, the ink, new, undue influence. That's what they were calling it now. Inheritance theft by motherhood. I signed the delivery receipt. My pen didn't shake, but my stomach did. I placed the paper in a file folder I labeled in thick, black marker. Litigation. It joined the others on the desk like a final chess piece laid on velvet. By sunrise, I'd showered, dressed, packed the purse with every sealed envelope, and made a pot of ginger tea I wouldn't drink. The courthouse stood like a mausoleum for decency. Gray stone, heavy. Arches. Too dignified to accuse, too old to defend. Kendrick was already waiting on the steps. Tie, a little crooked eyes, sharp. Clipboard in hand, like a sword no one would see coming. I felt her before I saw her. Olivia. Lurking behind the column nearest the side ramp, pretending she wasn't watching me. Pretending her heels didn't ache. The confidence she'd worn last week now hung loose, like a coat borrowed in haste. She didn't approach, didn't greet. She just stared, jaw tight. Inside, it smelled like air conditioning and expectation. I walked slower than I needed to let the click of my shoes echo just long enough to feel cinematic. When we reached the front bench, Kendrick whispered, "We go first." I nodded. My purse sat beside me, zipper open just enough to show the labeled envelopes inside. When the clerk called my name, I stood like I'd done it 1,000 times, like I wasn't breaking on the inside. I walked forward, placed the first envelope, judge, directly on the bench. Then the codicil, then clause 9. Each one face up, each one deliberate. The judge didn't look at me. She read her brow, furrowed, her lips pursed. I knew that face, the one women wear when they're trying not to admire another. Woman's precision. Olivia's lawyer stood. Objection. We believe the documentation may have been. Kendrick raised a hand like he was conducting a silent symphony. authenticated by 2 notaries, time-stamped, registered, and cross-verified by your client's own financial advisor. The silence that followed felt earned. Even the gallery breathed quieter. The judge flipped through the copies, ran her finger down the codicil, paused at Robert's handwriting. Then, without looking up, she said, "Admissible." I could feel Olivia behind me, could feel the heat rising off her like smoke from a failed spell. I didn't turn around, didn't need to. I slid the CLERK envelope forward next, then the one marked family, last, unopened, still sealed, still potent. The courtroom didn't erupt, but it stirred, like a pond hit by one clean stone. The kind that sinks fast, but leaves ripples that never quite fade. The judge lifted her gavel, didn't bang it yet, just held it there, poised it, then said, with the weight of law and lineage, "Court is in session." And as she spoke it, the light through the high-stained window shifted. It hit the floor in a perfect square, right where my purse rested, as if the sun had picked its side. I looked at it then, at Olivia's reflection in the polished bench, not panicked, just, wrong, footed, like a dancer, realizing the music changed, halfway through the performance. Let them object, let them posture, let them plead. My house stood. My choices echoed, my documents glowed in that pool of morning light. Let them try. I had already won. I'd just come to witness it. The floors didn't creak. They announced me. Every heel strike echoed like punctuation across polished marble, sharp, intentional, unafraid. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't tiptoe. I climbed the oak steps, as if they knew me. Maybe they did. They had seen me before, years ago when Robert was honored at the Bar Association. Back then, I wore pearls and pride. Today, just steel, and a purse heavy with proof. Inside the chamber, the air shifted not from temperature but attention. Eyes turned like sunflowers, cautious and collective. And there, in the second row, sat Olivia. Her arms crossed. Michael beside her, tugging his tie like it might excuse him from the bloodline. I didn't flinch, not when Olivia glared, not when Michael avoided my eyes. Instead, I nodded at the bailiff, a quiet gesture between people who still believed in structure. He tipped his chin, respects but solid. The judge entered without drama, but with weight. She didn't need theatrics, just robes and reputation. She adjusted her glasses, scanned the docket, and said what I'd already memorized. "We'll begin with the matter of Hale versus Hale." Kendrick stood. He wasn't polished, he was sharpened. His voice didn't rise, it landed. "Your Honor, we intend to show this court that the codicil in question was not only valid, but visionary." He passed the document forward with care, as if it were sacred. And maybe it was. Olivia's lawyer rose. A man with too much cologne, and not enough doubt. He rattled about coercion and fragile mental states, but the judge didn't blink, didn't scribble, just watched, measured, waited, The air changed again, thicker now, like everyone inhaled, but forgot to exhale. And then it came, the shift, her voice, deliberate. "Proceed, Mrs. Graham." It wasn't a request. It was a stage cue. I stood, slower than I needed to, let the room feel the pause. I opened my purse, lifted the envelope, marked family, still sealed, still honest. I held it not like a threat but like a vow. "My name is Edith Hale," I said. Each word set down like glassware in a quiet kitchen. "I was Robert Hale's wife for 41 years. I do not claim what wasn't mine. I only protect what he gave clearly, willfully, and with love." Silence, heavy as velvet, real as breath. I placed the envelope on the table, right between counsel, neutral, territory. IGNORABLE. The judge looked at it, then at me. Her eyes weren't soft, but they weren't skeptical either. I exhaled, not relief, just readiness, and said, "Thank you, Your Honor." The gavel didn't strike, but something inside me did. A knot, coming loose, not broken, just, unknotted, behind me. Olivia whispered something to Michael. He didn't respond, didn't even look at her. That was new. Kendrick leaned over, voice low that landed. I nodded, eyes forward, still, like stone warmed by sunrise. I remembered the roses Robert once planted. They bloomed late that year, but when they did, they outlasted everything else, even frost. Now, the courtroom smelled faintly of old books and tension, the kind of scent that clings to decisions. I sat down slowly, my purse resting again at my side, its zipper still open, a little like my heart, just enough, but not all the way, not yet. The envelope on the table hadn't been touched. It didn't need to be. It existed, like love that doesn't need performance. Only presence. Outside, through the window, the sky was shifting again, the kind of blue that means either rain or revelation. Let them argue, let them posture. My words were said, my truth placed. Whatever happened next, I had already risen, already bloomed, already begun again. The judge leaned back, fingertips steepled. She hadn't ruled, not yet, but something shifted, not in law, in air. You could feel the tilt of it. The courthouse clock struck once, just once, but it echoed like prophecy. I closed my eyes for half a second. Some victories don't roar, they rustle quiet as paper sliding across oak. The judge lifted the codicil like it might burn her fingers. She didn't blink, just read aloud Clause 9, the words I'd traced so many nights, now echoing off stone and silence. Shall be honored above all contesting claims in accordance with the testator's explicit instruction. The final syllable dropped like a pin in a cathedral. No breath. No movement. Only truth. Olivia's lawyer stood again. Puffed, desperate, double quotes, Your Honor. We assert that Mr. Hale may not have been in full mental command. Kendrick didn't even stand. He slid a letter across the table, folded once, ink faded, then explained this, he said. The judge took it, opened, read. The corner bore Robert's signature, the content, his intent. I wish Edith to remain protected above inheritance, above tradition. She is not a beneficiary. She is the foundation. The courtroom didn't erupt. It bowed. To gravity, to history, to a man's words finally heard. Michael swallowed, hard. I could see it from my seat, his Adam's apple bouncing like guilt, trying to escape his throat. Olivia didn't move, but her hand gripped the bench so tight, her knuckles paled. I wondered, briefly, if she still thought it was about money. Or, if finally, she knew it was about memory. And what she'd done to it. The judge placed the letter beside the codliff stacked. Aligned. Unshakable. She closed her folder, took a long pause, then spoke with the even tone of someone chiseling stone. This court finds the codicil valid and enforceable. The trust stands. Clause 9 is binding. Someone in the gallery gasped. Kendrick allowed himself a single nod. I did not move. Not yet. I just breathed. Like a woman who'd been holding it in for years. Like someone who'd stood alone in the ruins of her own name and dared to rebuild. The judge continued, but her words blurred. Lawful, procedural, technical. What mattered had already been said. What mattered was done. The purse beside me held no more battles, just papers now, proven, and something more valuable, peace. I glanced over my shoulder one last time. Olivia sat stiff. Her confidence shattered but disguised. Michael, he looked at me. Just for a moment, and in that single glance, something broke. Not anger, not apology. Apology, just recognition, maybe even remorse. It was enough. As we stood to leave, Kendrick handed me a small black frame. Robert's photo. I hadn't seen it since the memorial. He'd kept it safe now. So had I. We walked out past the columns, past the bailiff's nod, past everything that tried to rewrite a story already lived. Outside, the sky had cleared. Sunlight spilled across the stone like forgiveness. I stepped down slow. Each stair, a new chapter. Each breath, a release. We reached the car. Kendrick opened the door. I turned once more, looked back at the courthouse, at its permanence. At its silence. Then I placed my hand gently on Robert's photo, the frame warm from my touch. We did it, I whispered, and for the first time in months, I meant it. The silence in my kitchen wasn't empty. It was earned. No clatter, no sideways glances, no sugar-coated insults tucked into questions about the spice. Rack. Just breath, and sunlight touching the counter like it remembered me. The same counter. Olivia once leaned against, back arched, voice loud, eyes scanning for allies. She wasn't leaning now. She stood in the doorway like an ending, while I stood in the center like a beginning. Michael stepped in first. He didn't speak, not at first. Then, slowly, without theatrics or fanfare, he dropped to one knee. Not begging, not performative, just, real, Mom, he said. I'm sorry. His voice cracked like a boy who missed something he'd only just realized he had. Not wealth. Not legacy. Me. I didn't hug him. didn't cry. I reached into my purse and pulled out the new kitchen key, brass cool from the courthouse. Still carrying a scent of leather and paper, I placed it in his hand. Use it wisely. He nodded. Held it like it meant something. Because no, it did. Behind him, Olivia still hadn't moved. Her arms were folded, but her eyes weren't defiant anymore. They darted, corner to corner, like a woman who no longer recognized the room she once ruled. I stepped toward her, no venom, no apology, just a line drawn. Your chapter here ends now. The words didn't echo. They landed, softly, finally. She opened her mouth, then shut it. Even her defiance was tired. I walked past her like a season that didn't wait for permission to change. From the pantry, Rosa emerged, holding a birthday cake I had forgotten. Of course I had, but she hadn't. It was small, homemade, candles, crooked and dancing. The frosting read, "Welcome home." The metaphor wasn't lost on me. This wasn't about sugar or celebration. It was about return, to self, to stillness, to something sacred. I stepped to the table. Michael stood beside me. Rosa smiled without words. Olivia lingered, just long enough to see what love looked like when it wasn't coerced. Then she turned and left. I looked at the candles, then closed my eyes, not to wish to remember. When I blew them out, the room didn't cheer. It exhaled, like the house itself had been waiting. I sat in my chair, the one she once tried to replace, the one Robert built. It creaked slightly like an old friend, stretching outside. Morning light filtered in soft, steady. It touched the cake, the key in Michael's hand. My shoulders, like blessing, or maybe just truth. My silhouette rested in the window, not looming, not hiding, just home.